Welcome to The Impossible, where we empower others to face the impossible, inspire them to be impossible, and motivate them to do the impossible. I'm Matt, and we are back this week with my brother, Austin Douglas. And we wanted to hop on here and give you guys just kind of a refreshing chat. We've had some really great guests on the past few weeks, and we've gone pretty deep with them. But we wanted to take some time to just chat together a little bit and chat with you guys about what we've been working towards the past little bit with the business and what we're going to be working toward in the future. But yesterday we had just another great opportunity to witness some incredible levels of human potential at the Monsters bar fight meet, the April powerlifting meet that occurs at Monsters every year. And there are great lifters out there, a lot of whom you guys know. Some of you people listening are some of the great lifters that were out there yesterday. And you guys know who you are, and we love you. And this meet was, I think, very unique from so many of the others we've had the opportunity to be a part of. But it really was not, I think, quite what we were expecting in a lot of ways. I know my own personal performance, which we'll dive into, was not exactly what I was expecting or what I was wanting, due to many different factors. Yet, even in the face of these outside circumstances that are not within our control, I was very happy with my ability to still bring forth this mindset and still hopefully show people that regardless of the circumstances, you can definitely always approach the situation and adjust your mindset and kind of unleash it to bring forth, again, new levels of potential that shouldn't be able to exist despite the circumstances around them. So that ended up being my main goal with this meet, and it's definitely a main goal of our platform, our podcast, everything we do, and it's going to be a big goal going forward. So what were some of your main takeaways from the meet yesterday?
First of all, I got to enjoy this meet from the spectator's view, from the media view, I suppose. I was missing my badge, but that's okay.
Dude, you crushed it with me yesterday.
I mean,
like you
were I tried my
everywhere.
best. I was I was everywhere in people's way sometimes, but it's all with love, I suppose, and I'm just trying to capture the best of the lifters because we had the best lifters performing yesterday. So we had some absolutely incredible women stepping up there and pushing and pulling some really big numbers. A lot of records being broken over and over again for some of them, and then the big boys came up. It's really cool to see a lot of heavyweight being moved as well, especially by a lot of the younger lifters. We had quite a few, under 25, under 24 that are just absolutely crushing weight that I would just never imagine, yet they're competing at the 198 and 220 body weight. And it's really incredible to see that, and just see how, not just how dedicated there are, but like a few of them had their friends there that I had seen, just walking by. They were focused but excited about what was happening, and it's cool to see that in the younger generation. Yeah. I really I revel in that. It's something that I hope to influence on my nephew and nieces. So just getting into the gym in general, but it's cool to see them really excited about what's happening, and seeing how they perform. They really did awesome. And then we had the one and only JD with his first meet. So
first powerlifting
meet, and he did really, really well. He had some obstacles to get over, and he did it.
Yeah.
He really stepped up for squats. Had a little difficulty with depth, but he came back from it, and he really fired on all cylinders. His bench went really, really well, and then his deadlift was just as good. I mean, he may have missed his last lift, but he was ready to take it. So we'll get those taken care of soon. But and that was really cool. It was just you know, having someone so close struggle, over the years with some aspects of life, and to come in with this meet, and powerlifting has not been his thing for too long. I mean, it's his first meet. He hasn't been prepping, powerlifting for 2+ years. It's just, he's really taken these past, 3 to 6 months very seriously with it, with lifting, with understanding how to lift, the technique, and taking in all advice from whomever would give it to him. That was really, really incredible to experience. And then for him to step up on the day, get up there, and just, I mean, he was still JD, like I put the camera in his face, and he was, moving away from the camera as fast as possible.
A little awkward and uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. Like get that out of my face. And I'm like, nope. This is part of the reason why I'm here right now. So, yeah, that was incredible to witness, incredible to experience, and thankful to have gotten to experience that. And hopefully it's not his last meet, because I mean, for me, it seemed like he had a lot of fun. So
yeah. I can't say enough positive things about JD's whole performance yesterday. Mm-hmm. And as you brought up, the prep leading up to it, like, he approached it with the same intensity, consistency, and unwanted humor that is his personal brand. Again, that we love him for it. But yeah, he approached it with the same level of mindset that he approaches a marathon. And it was so cool to share that experience with him, to have him show that level of interest and dedication to the gym and strength training, and the incredible gains he made. I think some of those earlier training sessions, he had pulled maybe like 330s, 340s. And then yesterday, to pull a very clean, very composed 375, hit a perfect lift, and then to turn around and just barely, like almost nearly pull 400. He had it all the way up and just wasn't able to quite get those last few inches of lockout, which anybody who's ever been in a meet before, that last deadlift, that 9th lift after 8 previous max effort attempts, that you are completely, your body's just trashed, and you're running purely on adrenaline mindset and spirit at that point. And so, there's all kinds of things that can happen, but give him a week to 10 days to recover, give him a fresh training day, and he'll pull that easy. So that's an incredible growth to make. And that's just in the deadlift. His bench press and squat have grown equally as well. And what I love about his performance in this meet is he came out and had a great first opening squat, perfect, what you would want, got points on the board, got that first one out of the way. And then a second, he gets called for depth. And we all know, that yesterday was just a particularly strict day for depth at the meet. That happens sometimes. It's not under any of the lifter's control. It's just something you got to show up to. You got to face it. You got to adapt to it. And you've got to adjust your approach to make sure you meet the demands of whatever the judges are putting out that day. So in this meet, it was particularly strict on depth. And so a lot of people were getting depth calls. We know Natalie got some depth calls. But anyway, JD comes up and he misses that second rep due to not being deep enough. And in this case, it wasn't necessarily just a strict call. He legitimately was not deep enough. Like it was, apparently very apparent that it was a little high, which is okay. It's something that happens to all lifters. I've been high before, it's something we all struggle with a little bit. So the weight moved good though. Like he moved it very easily once he did come up. So as we're picking that last number, he opened with, I think, 240, 250, something very easy, very doable for him. And his goal was to hit over 300. So he comes back on a second attempt. I think he was at like 280 280 something. And again, it moved very easy. So as we're picking this next number, he could have taken the 280 again to try to tack that on the board.
Yeah.
But he knew before I even told him, he knew his goal. He showed up to squat 300 that day. So he moved the 280 so easily that he knew he had the strength for it. He just needed to hit that depth and get a little bit more composed of a lift. And so totally, it took no urging on my part. It was totally of his call. He wanted to go straight for 300.
Good.
And that's a big thing. I'm very proud of him to be able to have that level of confidence in calling that number. Right. Not just because it's his first meet, but confidence is something, he and he'll admit to you, he struggles with a lot, and it's something he's always working to build and grow in, and that's a very admirable pursuit. But he called it incredibly confidently. He wanted to go for the 300. And so between that second and third attempt, one thing that I told him is I said, on this attempt, I said, if, don't let yourself worry about whether you're going to hit it or not. I said, one thing to think about though, is just think about if you are going to fail, or if you do fail it, it's not going to be for depth. I said, let it be because you just simply don't have enough strength to put the weight up. But don't let yourself get another depth call. Make sure you hit depth. Make that the goal for this lift. Because I didn't want him to end squats with that feeling of, say he did the same thing he did on his second attempt, where he goes down, squats it up, and knows he moved it, but he didn't get deep enough.
Yeah.
That leaves you with this feeling of like, well, am I really strong enough to move that weight?
Why couldn't I just go down 1 or 2 more inches?
Yeah. It leaves you with this very unsatisfied, incomplete feeling.
And seeing those 3 red X's, whereas if you hit depth, come up, and you fail getting up all the way to the top, you know that you tried.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
You tried.
You know that you took the squat to the very hardest part.
Yeah, to the maximum.
that is to reach depth with a crushing amount of weight on your back.
Yeah.
That is why depth or squat is my favorite lift, and why I think it takes the most heart and the most spirit and the most mental strength, is because you're literally climbing under weight that could crush you, and you're putting yourself in a very compromised position. A full depth squat is not necessarily a safe position to have a crushing amount of weight on your back. And so you willingly and forcefully put yourself in that position, and then you rise from it. It's such a beautiful metaphor to exactly what's happening, both physically and in reality, and within yourself, mentally and spiritually as well. So that's why it's such a cool movement. But I wanted him to have that closure to the movement, that either he goes out and he smokes it and it's a beautiful, perfect rep, or he goes out and he hits depth. Maybe he doesn't get the weight up, but at least he knows, I got it to the hardest point and I just wasn't strong enough this day. And you can have closure with that and say, I'll come back for it next time. And that is what happened. But to his credit, he comes out and he hit a perfect level of depth. It wasn't too much, wasn't too little. It was a perfect amount of depth for him. And then as he's coming out of the hole, I think he just wasn't quite used to going to that level of depth with that heavy a weight on his back. And so he struggled a little bit coming out of the hole, and then he came forward a little bit and they had to take the weight from him. Thankfully, we had an amazing spot and load crew yesterday, a lot of whom were monsters from the gym. They did a phenomenal job. They kept him and all the other lifters perfectly safe.
Yeah.
So he came out of that, and I congratulated him. I said, you did awesome, man. Like, you came back and you didn't make the same mistake twice. You hit depth that time. The strength wasn't there today, but that's all right. We'll move forward. We'll bench and deadlift, and you'll have that 300-pound squat next time. So I will say I was not sure how he would do going forward with that. Like, I wondered, will that squat get in his head a little bit? Or will he be able to totally shut it out and still perform on bench and deadlift? And to his credit, again, he just totally switched gears, went into bench, and benched like a freaking beast, dude.
Yeah, he did really well.
A beast. It was incredible. He hit all 3 attempts and just were smooth, clean, perfect reps. And he ends up getting the 200-pound bench, which is, he actually set a small PR. He went up to 202. And again, this is another point where I was incredibly proud of him. He could have called a number that was pretty close to exactly 200. And he was looking at that number, and then he said, no, I want to go up to 202, take that small PR. Like it's right at 200 pounds, but it's a small PR. So he pushed himself, even a little bit beyond where he was wanting, so he could get that small PR. And again, just another moment of pride, because that's something that would not always have been within his nature to do so. Yet he came out and did it, and then he smoked it, a beautiful rep. It was incredible to witness. And then deadlifts come out, and again, great opener, beautiful second, and then the third just didn't quite hit that lockout, but he called that third, and it was a big jump, but he called it in a way that he's like, this is what I came to do.
Yep.
I'm going to go out and chase this. And it's one of those where he can take true satisfaction in the lift, even though he didn't technically get the lift. He can take satisfaction at knowing that he moved that weight.
Yeah,
he missed the lockout. Yeah, but
3/4 of the way up.
Yeah, exactly. So. He missed the lockout, but he moved that weight, and he moved it well. And his form locked in on deadlift, which is probably the form he's been struggling with the most throughout prep. It locked in on deadlift better than it has at all during prep.
Because preface, he deadlifted conventional.
Yeah.
At the meet.
Yeah.
But up until how long ago did he start?
3 weeks, maybe 4.
A month prior to the meet, he switches from sumo to conventional. And the idea behind it before was just Mr. JD has some very long legs. And so naturally, let's get into the sumo. And he was doing really well with sumo for a very long time. I mean, this goes back for as long as I've been training with him. He's deadlifted sumo, and he's pulled in the threes many a times in sumo before. And so when actually I was away, when you started sending me videos and just seeing in the group chat about him pulling conventional, I was just like, April Fool's is in like a week or a few weeks. Like what are you doing here? And no, he was taking serious this conventional pull, and come to find out that he was doing really well with it, and he was right there at the same weight as sumo, which is what blew me away, is that he was able to, not that you all of a sudden lose strength when you go from one to another, but to make that transition for someone who's not been powerlifting for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. I see that as something, as a very difficult task to take on, yet he took it on and excelled with it.
Yeah. Well, and what gave me the idea was I'd seen some other people who are very high level do it previously. Natalie has, within, I think, the past year,
yep,
and especially since she's gotten with Curtis, made the change from deadlifting sumo to deadlifting conventional. And she's significantly stronger now conventional than she was. Wade is another great example. He was deadlifting sumo, switched to conventional, and now he's pulling more conventional. So it's not always that everybody pulls better sumo. I know I can't pull 135 sumo, especially with the prosthetic.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that kind of got it in my brain of like, maybe this is something to try. And from the very first rep he did it, I was like, okay, this is what we're going with, because he just looked, the main and number one reason, he looked so much more comfortable.
Yeah, he does.
And he felt so much more comfortable. And there's a big thing to be said for feeling comfortable and natural with the movement you're doing. Mm-hmm. Now, there are going to be some tweaks you have to make that may not feel 100% natural at first, yet you've got to fight through it or work through it, because it will ultimately give you a better lift. But the movement as a whole, there's a lot to be said for finding comfort in the movement. He never felt comfortable with sumo, right, and it caused a lot of pressure on his knees that wasn't good,
and
a lot of tightness in his IT bands. It was just a movement that was kind of breaking him down more than it was building him up. But the second he got conventional, now we have work to do on strengthening the posterior chain, the hips, the glutes, the hamstrings, all of that. But that will come with time. what's awesome to me is he's made such incredible growth in his control of his form throughout the movement, and that really was highlighted yesterday. So,
and to be attempting over 400.
Yeah.
For, I mean, how many times did he attempt that on sumo?
Never. I don't know what his highest was on sumo. I want to say it was right around 350.
Yeah, it was mid threes.
But that was a couple years ago when he had been lifting pretty heavy, and it was definitely not as clean of a lift as some of the ones he's had recently. So that was awesome to see. It was really great to share that experience with him, because we've gone out and done marathons with him several times now, and we've kind of operated in his world, and so to share in that experience of have him come into our world that we're a little more comfortable in, yet still take that same attitude that we tried to bring to running, and just show up and take it seriously, approach it with consistency, give his very best effort he could, and he came out and had a phenomenal day. And it was a true honor to be able to share the platform with him in a small way like that.
And just to be there to witness that.
Yeah.
And to record that, and to be able to have that for the future, just for, it's one of those aspects of Hormozi's idea of, that's a trophy that he can put on his, cabinet, put up on the shelf.
Yeah.
That's a victory that he's able to have in his pocket now, to go, in moments of trials and tribulations in the future, he can look back at that and go, yeah, I attempted that. I pushed myself to hit numbers and go past limitations that either external or internal forces had put upon me. And to see that attempt and all of that kind of working in his head throughout the day especially was really cool.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed that.
Yeah, he'll always know what he made happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that will drive forward. We always talk about competence building confidence, and that'll drive forward and build confidence for him going forward for the rest of his life. And that's why these moments and these opportunities are so important to latch on to.
Mm-hmm.
But even kind of beyond just that moment and that day and that competition, it's so important to latch on the process, because that's where you build the version of yourself who goes out and does that thing, whatever it is. And that it's the building of that person, that individual. That's what's truly going to serve you, because now he's built someone who is stronger, who is more mentally resilient, who understands his body in ways he didn't before. That's going to carry forward into every single thing he approaches or takes on for the rest of his life.
Mm-hmm.
And that process is also a practice in discipline, in consistency, and self-mastery, and all of these things that, again, are traits you can carry over to anything you pursue in life. And that's why we always focus on the process so much. But he had an absolutely incredible day, and so many other people did as well.
Mm-hmm.
Natalie put up massive numbers. I mean, just insane. Abby put up huge numbers. We could go on and on and on. We could tell that whole story similar to that for just about every other lifter that came out. But it was definitely a day for me that was not how I had expected it to go. And this was a really unique meet for me. I'd never had a meet go quite like this before. It was actually the first meet I ever bombed out of, so I can finally add that to my list. When people are talking and about bombing out in a meet, because it happens to a lot of first-time lifters especially, and people always say the line, like, everybody's done it, and I'm always sitting here like, man, I've not done that yet, and I've always hoped to not do it, but it did finally happen. And I earned it in the most beautifully messed up of ways.
With 400 plus pounds above your head.
Yeah.
So,
it was an interesting meet for me. Backtracking a little bit to give a little backstory. I originally had planned on doing the 500-pound squat for this meet. Then after the December meet, I had some health issues resurge that got so bad it was really, really breaking my body down. Especially late December going into January, I was in a really difficult spot. I was not squatting over 300 pounds very well at all. I was not moving good. I was not feeling good. Not a lot good was happening as far as my health was concerned. Then towards the middle end of January, I got switched around with some different doctors. We started up some different forms of therapy, got some new medications on board, and it actually caused a pretty significant 180 with my health, and it started moving in a very positive direction. Over the month of February, I got about as healthy as I've been in a long time. Coupling that with the fact that at that time I was in really, really rough shape, I decided to start cutting a good bit of weight too, because I thought, well, this is at least one thing I can do to help my body feel better. You know, I felt like I didn't have a lot of control over the situation, but so I was like, I'll find something I do have more control over and execute on that so that I can at least feel better in some capacity.
Because you were already in a situation of having to be fully aware and fully like patrolling everything that you had to put into your body.
Yeah.
You were on full alert, full aware. So you're like, well, may as well, add a benefit to it at least.
Yeah.
Having to be that strict.
Yeah, for sure. So jumped on that. After the December meet, I'd gotten up to, I was touching really close to 300 pounds. I think the heaviest I got was like 297. And I'd kind of put on a lot of weight in hoping to get some big numbers for that meet. I did get some big numbers for that meet. But it got to the point where it was just too much. And it got to where I wasn't moving well. I wasn't maintaining good condition. It got to the point where I think it actually started hurting my performance more than it was helping. So decided to pull back and started cutting some weight, then got all the meds switched around, started feeling a lot better. And then I'm cutting weight, feeling better, moving better. All of these things are going good. But at this point, it's like end of February or getting close, middle end of February. And I know that that's not enough time to really hop into a good prep and make the squat happen that I want to happen. Right. I said, I could force it to happen, but it's not going to be the squat I want. Then when thinking out into the future, I realized the Paranationals are coming up in August 23rd. And I thought, well, what better opportunity than to be the first amputee to squat 500 in competition at the world's first para-only meet.
Yep.
So when I realized that, I said, that's a done deal. I'm going to make that happen. And then, I'd found out some other people were competing in a single ply bench shirt in April. And I wasn't doing a lot of heavy squatting and deadlifting at that point because I was still building back from some of the health challenges. I thought, you know what? I've never tried geared lifting before. It's always looked fun. I know Clayton loves it. Let me just try out in a shirt a couple times. So Clayton let me jump in his shirt just to try it out and see what it was like. And I immediately fell in love with it from the first get-go. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to jump in this meet. I'm going to do bench only. It'll open me up to help JD more with his meet and his training. And it'll allow me to take some time to let my body really rest and recover and heal and get back some strength in the squat and deadlift, while still exploring a totally new world of powerlifting that I was having an absolute blast with. So I got my shirt. Shout out to the guys at Battle Ready. Ted, the owner, he is just a phenomenal human being and an unbelievable resource when it comes to the world of geared benching. I mean, he's like a savant when it comes to it. He can look at things and see things and notice things about your entire bench that you've never even picked up on. It's really cool to see mastery at that level, regardless of what it's in. So they've been a great company to work with. I know Clayton's always spoken highly of them. They make phenomenal products too. So I got a shirt from them, and I started training and practicing and just seeing what we could make happen. And, I was able to go from, in about six training sessions total is what I got before the meet. And in that time, I went from like a 400-pound bench up to a really solid rep at 500 pounds and a couple near misses at 535. So my hopes for this meet, after getting fully healed up and rested and recovered and meet ready, I was thinking, man, I should be able to hit that 535 pretty clean, maybe even a little more. I was very excited for my potential in it. And then last weekend, week before the meet, I get some super nasty, I don't really know what it was. I never went to the doctor. I was never tested, but I got some kind of nasty lower respiratory virus. I don't know if it was the flu or whatever it was, but it definitely hit me very hard. I lost a lot of weight. I was not like good weight either. Couldn't eat, couldn't really drink that well. I got kind of dehydrated. I got underfueled, lost a lot of weight, and was just completely run down and fatigued and very, very weak, feverish, just to a point I'd not been in a long time. So at the same time, I still had to put in a pretty heavy work week as well. And so that drained what little energy I did have. So, battling that was really a really tough way to prep for the meet. And I kept thinking, you know what, it'll be okay. I'll be better tomorrow. And then I'll refuel, rehydrate, get ready for the meet, all the above. But it was like every day I just kept getting worse. And even Thursday, I finally wake up and I think I feel a little bit better. And then it was just a crazy day at work. And I come home and I'm just completely trashed Thursday. And wake up Friday morning, go do weigh-ins. And I'm like trying to eat throughout Friday. And I get a little bit of fuel in, but I'm still just completely run down and exhausted. So come meet day yesterday, I actually was still pretty sick and still not feeling the greatest. I'm definitely on the upswing at this point, but am I ready to totally max out in a movement that's still pretty new to me? Probably not. No. But, I look at these opportunities and I always try to take this with as much grace as I can. I've always said, like, well, for both of us, we're never going to be the very strongest. We're never going to be the very smartest or the very best at anything we pursue. But we will be the people who can show up despite every reason not to, and still use our minds to bring forth a level of potential out of the body that should not exist there. That's what we specialize in. And that's the power we bring to the table. So this ultimately became another opportunity to do just that. And that's how I started looking at it Saturday morning. Yet at the same time, I tried as much as possible, at least before the bench press portion, to not verbalize the sickness, not give any credence to it. I didn't want my brain to have any allowance that it could perform suboptimally because I'm sick or whatever reason. I wanted my brain to know that I was ready, I was feeling good, and I was going to attack this with the absolute best of my ability. That's the only message I wanted my body receiving. And I made a very concerted effort yesterday to actually keep as calm and as reserved and, sit down as much as possible and just chill out as much as possible, because I knew my energy window was going to be very, very small. I just didn't know exactly how much I would have. So I felt like I was pretty successful at staying pretty calm and reserved and laid back, while still being able to help JD and cheer on Wade and Natalie and other people that I wanted to definitely support. But then it comes time to warm up for benching. And so I did a lot of band work to kind of warm up the joints, just get them as fluid and warm as possible without touching weights. And I did that, and my plan was to have a very short, abbreviated warm up because, again, I did not want to waste what little energy I knew I'd be able to pull out on the warm up. So I do a triple at 165 with one red plate. I do a single at 209, a single at 275, and then I actually, per Clayton's recommendation, I'm glad he did, I jump straight in the shirt and go for 385, and I couldn't quite touch, without using extra force, I couldn't quite touch 385 in the shirt, but I floated it as low as it would go, and brought that rep up, and it felt amazing, and I felt my whole body come alive, and I'm like, yes, I've got it, we're locked in. But then, and I had intentions of doing this before, I was going to do one more heavy rep just to feel some heavy weight in my hands, because I'd been so sick for so long, and it had been like 10 days since I trained last, that, and this is still such a new movement to me, I wanted to make sure that I was ready for what that weight was going to feel like. I didn't want it to surprise me on the platform. And so I go out and I do it was 3 reds and a green, so it's like 429 attempt, and bring it down, touch, send it up. It's a beautiful rep, perfect control, everything you could ever want out of it. And I rack it, and it moved great, so all things are looking good. But when I sat up and took that shirt off, I felt that feeling that you get in your chest of just like energy is just drained. And I was like totally wiped, totally drained just after that little bit of work. And again, you know, I felt that feeling, my brain recognized it, and I immediately shut off that message. Because I think the messages not just what we consciously tell ourselves about ourselves, but what we unconsciously allow ourselves to believe, I believe those messages that come from the mind heavily influence the body. And I didn't want any message that was going to negatively affect my performance coming through.
Right.
So I immediately turned that off. I come out ready to take 451. And at this point, I'm trying as much as possible just to focus on each individual lift. I don't want to think about what's going to come next. What are my numbers going to be? I just want to focus on each individual lift. And this 451, I was ready for it. I knew it was a weight I'd done so many times before, very easily, you know, with a lot of good control. It should have been a very, very easy opener for me, because I was trying to open low again so that I could get numbers on the board, wouldn't bomb out. Well, then I get under the weight, I bring it down, it's feeling good coming down, and then I go to send it up, and it immediately flies backwards, and I lose control of it. I didn't even get it to the rack, just immediately flies backwards. And when I got up from that, I realized my body is completely shot. Like I have no strength, no power, no drive left in reserve. So I was correct in assessing that I was going to have a very short energy window. I was incorrect in how long I thought it would last. It was much shorter than I had even guessed it might be. And that's okay. That is what it is.
Right.
I can't necessarily control the level of sickness that my body got this time, you know, whatever illness this was.
And it was quite a lot.
It was a lot. It was heavy.
Many days. And that's what kind of got
like
me. Was
7 days in a row being totally wiped out.
Yeah,
and I don't even know I mean, it's probably been chemo was the last time I got that sick. So
yeah, because like you said before, you kept feeling worse.
Yeah, I kept thinking, I just got to get through today. Tomorrow will be better. Because usually when I get sick like that, it's like a day or two, and then I'm better and I'm fine.
Yeah.
You know? This time it was a week, and it laid me out hard. But, you know, I can't control that, but I can control how I show up, and at least that I show up. You know, and for me, I'm not chasing some professional career. I'm not even chasing a DOTS score. I'm not even really chasing a total.
Excuse me.
I just wanted to go out and find my highest potential, and we believe that you can do that under any circumstance, and this is one of those circumstances. It's a heck of a lot harder, yes, but this is still a circumstance where I can find potential, because it would have been so easy for me to realize how sick I was and just say, hey, I'm going to duck out of this meet. I'm just too sick right now. It's not good timing. I'm not going to put up the numbers I want. I could have easily said that, and nobody would have ever thought ill of me for it. But I would have always known that I didn't allow myself to find the potential I had.
You would have thought ill of it.
Yeah. I would have known. I would have sat there and known, like, I gave up before I even tried. I didn't even show up to it. I didn't even give myself the opportunity to perform. And that's something I would not have been able to sit well with myself. And as I've always said on the mic a million times, I would rather, in every case, I will always rather fail chasing something completely impossible than succeed at knowing something or doing something I know I can do. And so that's what I was there to do that day. After I missed the 451, it was a really bad miss. Like, just, I got up from that and I'm like, there's no way that I just benched like that, because that was probably the worst rep I'd ever had, like even worse than my very first reps, you know, like with weight that should have been easy. It was just, my power was gone. And so I got up and I tell John, I look at John, I'm like, I'm sorry, Johnny. I was like, just let me try it again. I'm going to do same weight. So I immediately go back. I try to fuel up with some quick glucose as much as possible. Try to hydrate, try to calm down, let my mind recover, let things reset. I'm hoping it was just a fluke and that I'll come back feeling better. And so I go through that waiting period. It comes up time for me to go again, get my mind reset, get everything tightened up, get ready to go. I'm not playing around this time. I'm treating this weight because I do think part of it was I let the weight surprise me a little bit. It wasn't supposed to be that hard. I was ready for a 451 easy opener. Like, I wasn't ready for a 451 that I might fail when I came at the first time. And so it did surprise me a little bit. That's something that I will say I didn't give it the credence it deserved. And so I was ready to come back at it the second time. And I come back at it the second time. I bring it down. Again, it's feeling okay coming down. I'm a little too high. I have to adjust mid down to bring it to my belly. You hear Clayton give the belly call a little bit, which helps me know I need to pull it down a little bit lower on my body. I get it down. I touch. I hear the press command, and I come up, and I don't even get it up this time. It doesn't hit the rack or anything, but I don't even have the power to get it up. And that's the point where I realized, man, this may not even happen. And that's like, because at that point I thought, well, maybe I'll just readjust. I'll be better and I'll still get 500 at least, if not the 535. And then I realized, man, I may not even stick my opener. And so I tell Johnny, keep me the same weight. This weight is now enemy number one. This is the thing I have to conquer. And I realized I went back and I caught Curtis somewhere along the way. I had a quick talk with him, and, you know, he was just asking like what kind of things I was feeling, what's going on. And, you know, I told him, I explained how I'd been sick and things like that. And I said, my window was just very small today and I'm just out of power right now. And then I realized, like, my body has failed. And so I tell him, like, I'm just going to have to use my mind to bring something out of my body that shouldn't be there. And it was saying one of those things that, like, you almost feel a little weird about saying at first. But as soon as I felt that, like,
especially out loud.
Yeah. As soon as I felt that, though, I was like, no, like, that is legitimately one of the few things I actually specialize in. And that is legitimately what I'm going to do right now. And so I sit down and I get my mind right and I put myself in the right place. And I convince myself that I am going to move this weight. Like, it is going to happen. There's no question about it. There's no ifs, ands, but, like, I'm going to move this weight. And so I get up there, I get redressed, all strapped up, ready to go. And I walk up to the bench and I sit down there. And that's the moment I'm really able to flip the switch. And I have certain switches and levers in places I go. If you guys have ever watched me compete before, especially, you know that I get very lost in I go to another place and I get very emotional, and it's a very serious experience and where I have to take myself. And there's this very specific one I actually have to use for bench press that is, it's pretty wild to me looking back that this place existed in my life before I had to bench heavy, for how synonymous the two are. But I go back to that spot and I put myself in that moment, and I kind of get lost in that world, which I know doesn't always work for everybody, but it works for me in these moments where I have to do this. And so Clayton unracks again, brings it out. And when he has the side spotters released, because they're taking some of the load too, because it's still 450 pounds. Like, it's not necessarily just a lightweight. And they release, and I feel it like crush in my arms, which the first two times it didn't even really feel that heavy because I'm used to holding much heavier weight. This time it feels so heavy in my arms because by now I've pushed myself to yet a third attempt when I had no energy for even the first. And I bring it down, and I had told Clayton before, I said, this time I'm going to do something different just in an effort to try something different. I'm going to bring it down way lower than I feel like I should, because my first two I'd kind of been not bringing it down low enough. I'm going to bring it down way lower than I should. I just want to try something different, see if I can pull power from somewhere else. So I bring it down way lower on the body, much lower to the belly, and I'm bringing it down, I'm controlling it, and then it touches. And there's that brief moment where the weight touches and you're waiting for the press command.
Damn command.
It's like the whole world stops. But as soon as it touched, in that moment, my whole body gets this like complete shock of like, this weight has crushed me. It's not going anywhere. Like, it is not moving at all. Like, that's like what my hands felt when it touched me, was this weight is not moving. And again, it's one of those where like, that's the knee-jerk reaction of your brain. That's the unconscious mind trying to limit you. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, I've just worked with this enough on myself that I immediately can like recognize that that's not a helpful or effective message. And I just switch it off. Like, literally, I somehow in an instant, I just make that go away. And then I like, and this is all happening within the span of less than a second, but it's like so much got crammed into that time frame, and I remember it. And I switched that off, and I remember I'm going to press this. And it's very important, like the place I was at, like kind of mentally, emotionally, and spiritually in that moment, because the press command comes and my whole body just like lights up. And I just slammed that weight up with absolutely everything I have. And I pressed the weight.
Yeah. And it moved pretty quick.
Yeah. I'm really interested to see the video, actually, because I've not seen it. And like I say, I was in a totally different spot of existence. Because what's actually funny is I was talking to you earlier about how I had that pause at the top, and I'm just holding it there. Because what happened is I pressed it, and the weight immediately falls back and goes into the rack. And so I technically completed the movement of the lift, but what I didn't do is in powerlifting competition, you have to press the weight, hold it at the top, and wait for a rack command so that then you can put it back into the rack. And if you don't do that all appropriately, then it's not considered a good lift. Mm-hmm. And I didn't do that. I pressed it, and the weight immediately fell back because it took every ounce of energy I had and then a lot more to get the weight up, let alone to hold it there. And so if you're not super strong in a shirt, the shirt will pull the weight back into the rack at the top. And so that's, I put everything I had into pressing it, and it falls back into the rack. It's considered no lift, and I'm just holding it there in the rack, but still holding it up, just waiting for that command. But what had happened is like, I'm so lost in another world, in another place, that like I press the weight up and it's in the rack, and I'm just still pushing there's nowhere left to go with it, but I'm still pushing everything I have into that weight. And it's like all of a sudden I come back to reality, and I realize I'm still pressing this weight, and I realize it's still in the rack. And then I realized I'm not going to get a rack command
Yeah.
because I didn't do the lift appropriately. And so then I let the weight fall and I get up and, it was a good call judges made. Like, I didn't complete the lift appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a good lift. And so I failed 3 attempts in a row, bombed out of my first meet. And, didn't put any points on the board from a, scoreboard standpoint. But in review of that lift, I was showing up on that last attempt to move that weight. And even when that weight is resting on my chest at the bottom of the lift, I felt that I had my instant reaction is you have no energy to press, like not even attempt to press this. And somehow I'm able to use my mind and my spirit to force more out of the body and make that weight move.
Mm-hmm.
And so I for one am at peace and I'm happy with my performance in the sense that I moved that weight when I had no business to move that weight. I pulled so much more potential out of myself than should have been there. I showed up to come compete at this meet the best I possibly could, despite the circumstances and despite every reason not to. And at the end of the day, that is the highest representation I can bring to impossible performance.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you know what it's like to have moments where you feel like things did not go your way. You even feel like you're failing at what you're chasing. Yet, there's so much to be said for showing up to a race you can't win. Simply to have that unruly faith in your own potential. Knowing the man you've built, knowing the mind you've built, knowing that you've done the impossible before, and knowing that it's always on the table for you to do again. Should you have the faith in yourself to allow it to happen. And that's what I was there to do yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we will always be there to do going forward.
Every day.
Absolutely, brother. Dude, it was such an honor having you there. And I cannot tell you, like, how much it helped having you there. You helped manage so many things that I just did not have the mental capacity for that day, and it allowed me to kind of step back and have that time to rest and recover before the lift.
Mm-hmm.
And especially there to have you there to help handle JD a little bit and help support the lifters that have become a part of our team and the people we know and love and cherish in that family. And especially to have you running media, because you do such an artful, masterful job of that.
I'm okay with getting in people's faces.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, especially tall, incredible looking first-time powerlifters.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
One Mr. James D. Wright. So that was the April bar fight. Not the meet we expected, not the meet we necessarily even hoped for, yet still a moment I can say I'm proud of, a moment I'm thankful for, and all of the experiences we got to share with the other lifters
mm-hmm.
and share together with ourselves. And a moment that I think really sets the stage going forward. We've got a lot of goals, a lot of plans, a lot of actions right now going forward with the business. And we've got personal goals with our own performance as well. And for me, what's going to be coming next is a couple months off to, well, not off, but a couple months not full-time powerlifting to help rest, recover, build up some mobility, keep attacking this cut pretty hard, get down as low as I reasonably can, and get myself in the most healthy position possible.
Mm-hmm.
So that starting May 31st, I will begin prep for a full power meet in August at Paranationals on August 23rd at Monsters Bent Barbell. And it will be the most I've ever put into a meet before. It will be a 12-week prep, which I've never done more than a 6-week prep before because of how many crazy random different things I go out and chase. 12-week prep, total alignment, eyes forward, ready to find my very highest potential on the platform. That's what August is going to be. And that is going to be probably one of the final big performances that I have in my powerlifting career, because we have bigger priorities to chase going forward. We will always keep training and strength and the community of powerlifting and strength sports as a core piece of everything we do. But for me, I'm finding more meaningful competition in some other avenues right now that we're chasing with the business and helping build up and motivate and inspire and bring together those that we're serving. And for me, I'm getting to a place where I love the potential I've found in this sport. But now it's becoming an even more exhilarating thing for me to help others find their highest potential.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we're going to continue doing going forward.
Yes.
Yeah. But right now, eyes focused on getting as healthy as possible the next couple months. And then we are going to create a performance in August like I've never been able to bring forth before. And I'm incredibly excited and thankful for that opportunity.
Some big numbers.
Absolutely. Definitely 500 plus squat.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what happens on bench. Bench is really just a great rest between squat and deadlift. And then the 562 deadlift will be eliminated on the second attempt. It will never be anything I have to look at with such disdain and hatred ever again. The second attempt, it
Just
will
take
be
care
gone.
of it. Yep.
And the third attempt will be the opportunity to find the true potential.
Mm-hmm.
562 does not get the honor of being my third attempt anymore.
No.
So it'll be something better.
Something much bigger
Yeah,
for the third attempt.
better. I love it, brother. So that's what we got for you guys today. Meet recap, what we're looking at in the future, but especially, hopefully, some great lessons to take from all of this. And know that anything we discuss on this podcast, about any of the things we've been able to overcome, it's never anything special or unique to us. It's something that we all have access to, should you find the right path to bring it forward. And Austin is working very hard actually right now to build a structure around this and give direction to this, to how you guys and how we all can incorporate these strategies, these skills, these mindsets into our own lives, to make them actionable, to make them things we can use going forward in any pursuit. Any pursuit you guys have, you can chase the impossible within it. And that's what Austin's working on. You want to give him a small teaser?
Slight tease. So, yes, we are working on something I like to call, for now, of the impossible mind. So we'll give you a first look, something we want to reach out to as many people as possible, but to all, hopefully, of where we intend to go with that in a nice little short introductory kind of manner. And then we'll bring you the full length, full breadth, full width, full analysis of what it's like to chase the impossible. Because in order to face the impossible, you must be impossible to do the impossible. And that, as Matt referred to there, it's going to come in a very, very structured manner, but also a very, very similar manner as the podcast is. It's going to be conversational. It's going to be myself, Matt, what we have found on this journey. It's going to be us giving you and elaborating on our experiences, but it's going to be a conversation between the two of us and you, the reader. So that's what I'm most excited about is to share this, and it's only going to be the beginning for us and sharing everything that we've learned, but going down this path that we have found and hopefully you will find if you haven't already, and seeing how far we can take this. We don't Matt and I no longer see ceilings. There are none. We do not accept limitations, and these books, and anything that happens in the future, this will be us discussing how we got there and why we ultimately ended up there. So for us personally, on a more personal side, it's just, this is another way for us to really offer our service to you and to those who need it. So, and that's what really motivates me to get it, to get after it with this project. This is such an impossible feat for me personally, writing this much. Something that I've always looked forward to on the more personal note. And I am absolutely thrilled and elated to do so.
Absolutely, brother. I cannot wait for you guys to be able to experience this, to have direction and structure and access to that ability to use your mind to bring forth what the body cannot.
Mm.
We've had some pretty serious talks that we feel like this is one of the most underutilized parts of any performance, is harnessing the mind to influence the body and bring forth a level of potential that absolutely should not exist yet. We know it's there, we know it's attainable, and we've found ways within ourselves to bring it forth. And we can't wait for you guys to find that within yourselves, because once you find this, it allows you to fully accept that these limitations we may feel, they're only there of our choosing.
Mm.
And we can choose to let go of them at any point we wish. So guys, we appreciate you listening to this episode. We appreciate you being a part of this community. We appreciate you pursuing this path that leads you to places that may not always be the most comfortable or the most easy, yet they are places that force and stimulate new levels of growth, levels that you never thought possible within yourself. And as always, the number one thing we ask on this show is, if you found something in this episode that has helped you or spoken to you or has moved you in some way, please share it with anyone you know whom you think it would help. Because at the end of the day, that is how we accomplish our mission and our vision at Impossible Performance. It's how we do everything Austin and I are striving to do as people. It's how we move forward and grow in our own message and mindset, in our own pursuits in life. Because at Impossible Performance, we are building a global culture of strength, fostering a spirit of growth in constant pursuit of the impossible. Thank you for listening, and as always, be impossible.